perfect. There are people who you'll put on a pedestal because they are role models or because they've never done wrong by you. But genuinely, no one is perfect, no matter who you consider to be the greatest human on the planet. I won't lie, I fell into that trap with my wife. I started to think that she was close to perfect. As the person who lives with her 24/7, I knew her flaws more than anyone else, but they weren't as glaring as the average person's. My wife works as a researcher at a scientific institute in our city. She's exceedingly smart. She plays 2 instruments, she's very caring, and loves to volunteer with children and animals, and she doesn't get too angry quickly. It always seemed to me like that kind of person would have a perfect moral compass. I fell into the trap of thinking that about her, and it took a very harsh reality check recently to show me that she's not perfect. You can be a good person on the outside and still be a crappy individual behind closed doors. That's the situation with her. I am 33 male, and she, Kate, is 34 female. We've been married to each other for 5 years now, and it has been 5 happy years of marriage, until recent events. She doesn't know that I know what she's been up to, but I do, and it has broken my heart in a way that it has never been broken before. It's insane to me that it was Kate, of all people, who would end up doing it to me, but I suppose I thought too highly of her. It doesn't take a super genius to know that she cheated on me. I found out that she cheated on me, and this happened for sure. I'm not in the time when I think it happened or I only have suspicions. I know that she cheated on me because I've already done all of my digging, and I know some of you will wonder why I was digging when she's such a perfect person and there's no reason for me to suspect her of anything. It's because she made one major slip-up that made me realize there was something she wasn't telling me. Kate went out for dinner with a friend. She told me that she was a fellow researcher who she had met at a conference some years ago. That researcher came into town, so she decided that she was going to see her so they could catch up and talk about life and work. That sounded great to me, and I was happy that she was going. She told me that she was going to a certain restaurant that we had been to multiple times before. We both loved the place and were well known there. I told her to have fun. When she came back, she narrated the day to me, and it sounded very real. It sounded exactly like what a good night at a restaurant was meant to be. I was glad she had a good time. She has a little female purse that she carries around with her. That's where she keeps her phone, her keys, her cards, her money, and all that kind of stuff. She also keeps gum in there. I decided to open the bag, which she had left on the kitchen island. She had collapsed on the sofa watching whatever was playing on the TV at the time. Inside her purse, I saw a receipt, which I guessed was from that night out. I wanted to see how much they had spent, out of curiosity, and whatever she paid for her friend's meal. It was the kind of nice thing she would do, and whether she did or she didn't, it wouldn't have been a problem. There was a problem, but it wasn't that. The problem was that the restaurant on the receipt wasn't the restaurant that she had told me she was going to. It's not like the plans changed, because just a few minutes before that, she had told me things specific to that restaurant, so she was still maintaining that they went there. This was a completely different place. We've been there once or twice, and it is on the other side of town. She paid for her side of the meal, and the receipt was dated for about an hour ago, so it was recent. There was no misunderstanding. I knew that she had lied to me for some reason, which was very uncharacteristic. I had the strong urge to ask her what was going on. Like I said, it wasn't like her to lie, or at least for me to catch her in a lie. So I felt like it wouldn't be wrong for me to confront her that one time and expect the truth. But at the same time, I knew the fact that she was lying was a red flag. There was something she wanted to hide from me. I very quickly took a picture of the receipt. My heart was beating the whole time because I was scared she was going to get off the couch to see what I was doing, but she was too tired. I eventually went to join her on the couch, acting like everything was normal. So, what scientific business did you guys talk about? I used that to prompt her into telling me all about her night, which she did. It sounded believable, and from her story, there was no space for her to have gone anywhere else. She claimed she went from home to the restaurant and from the restaurant back home. That's what I needed to get me to suspect her for real. Instead of just being a small lie that had me baffled, I knew that something was very wrong, but I just had no idea what it was. And if you've been in a healthy relationship, you'll quickly realize that cheating isn't the first thing that comes to your head when something is off. So cheating wasn't my first suspicion. I don't even know what it was. Like I said, she's a generally good person, so it was hard to imagine the kind of thing that she would be hiding from me. I checked her phone when she was sleeping that night, since I managed to get both of us to have 2 glasses of wine before she went to sleep, so I knew she would be out soundly. I went through the social media that she has. I went through her messages. I even went through her email. I didn't find a single thing that gave me more understanding of what had happened that night. I didn't even find correspondence with anyone that indicated that she had gone out that night. If she had gone out with the female researcher in question, then I would have expected to see them communicating somewhere. My wife is more of a messaging person than a calling person, so it didn't make much sense that there was nothing to back up the story she had told me. I decided to check her call log, and there was a single call that had been made earlier that night, probably about 20 minutes after she had left the house. If I were to guess, the number wasn't saved though. Thank the Lord for Truecaller though. I was able to use that to see the name linked to the number, which was Ethan, along with his last name, which started with an R. I temporarily gave up on digging through her phone and went back to my phone. I searched through the internet to find out who that was, and the best hit I got was an Ethan R. who was an academic in a similar field as her. That was the first point when cheating came into my mind. I wasn't entirely convinced, but I started to realize how much of a possibility it could be. I thought that I wasn't going to check her phone anymore, but I decided to give it another shot since I knew exactly who I was looking for. I checked all the same platforms to see if she had any messages with an Ethan, but there was nothing there. I had a feeling that he was who she had gone to meet. He wasn't the only person who had contacted her before she went on her dinner, but he was the only one whose purpose of messaging I couldn't ascertain. None of the rest had talked about meeting up or their arrangements. I know that Kate is incredibly smart. I think when you're smart, it tends very well to being clever and good at patching up your tracks. I realized that if there was ever any communication with Ethan, she had killed it. It probably got deleted within the hour of being sent, so I knew I wasn't meant to expect to see it. It'd be very dumb of her to leave inappropriate conversations on her phone. I decided to go through the complete list of apps on her phone, in case there was an app that she had chosen to hide from the app drawer. And would you look at that? She had Telegram on her phone. We've never had any reason to communicate over Telegram, but she had it on her phone. I knew I had found the right thing when I checked again and saw the Telegram wasn't the apps she had in clear sight. There was no reason for her to have an app hidden unless there was something I wasn't meant to see there. At that point, I felt like I had been going through her phone for too long, so my heart was pounding in my chest. I still went ahead with it, and when I opened Telegram, right there, as the very first chat, was her conversation with Ethan. There were messages from that night. He asked her if she got back home safely, which she confirmed. They chatted about a nice night, and that was it. But when I kept scrolling up, I saw the full extent of the relationship that the two of them had. It dated to 2 years ago, and it was entirely inappropriate. There were a lot of inappropriate messages shared between the two of them. Sexual messages and media. It was a full-blown affair, and it was clear that the two of them had strong feelings for each other. I went through as much as I could before I started to feel like there was no way for me to not get caught. I cleared up all the evidence that I was ever there. I tried to see if there was some way for me to export a Telegram chat from a phone, but I couldn't see a way. I had to use the desktop app, and I was scared that if I had tried that, she might have been able to figure out in some way or another. I ended up putting my phone on a tripod, recording and scrolling through 2 years of her conversations with Ethan one night when she was knocked out. It took me almost 30 minutes, but I was glad that I did, because it ended up giving me all of the evidence I needed, letting me reference it any time that I want. I can't look at her the same way. It feels like I had a rose in my hands, and out of nowhere, it just began to rot. She really was the perfect wife to me. We had life all planned out. We were supposed to start trying for kids literally next year. She said she wanted to start when she was 35 because she knew she would be far enough in her career. We were going to buy our own house too. Everything has fallen apart because of her. I know it makes me sound like I deserve to be cheated on, but it is such a harsh truth to encounter that I genuinely wished that there was some kind of explanation for the situation. But of course, that is too much to wish for. It was exactly what it looked like. She's a smart woman. I don't know if she noticed that something was up with me. I've been doing my best to keep my mood hidden away, but my world has changed. Nothing feels right. So I would be very surprised if she actually didn't notice that anything was different with me. If she has, she hasn't said anything though. I'm going to go straight to a divorce lawyer and get the process started. I might not have been so hasty about it if I wasn't sure, but the situation is clear. She went out to dinner with her affair partner, Ethan, on the night that she lied to me that she was going to see a fellow researcher. She went to a different place that she told me because the usual place had people who knew the two of us. She was too smart to make that kind of silly mistake. She deleted all the chats between them. His number wasn't saved. She probably had it memorized. She only chatted with him on Telegram, which was hidden on her phone. She's doing a good job being a cheating wife, but she made a mistake. It took me 2 years to find out, but I have now, and that's all that matters. She's going to get what she deserves. Update. It has been ages since the last post I made about discovering that my wife was cheating on me, but I guess I'm better late than never. The whole saga has concluded. I can't express how much it feels like a massive weight has been taken off of my back. I'm just very glad that this isn't the kind of thing I need to worry about. I don't need to sit with paranoia, fear, and anxiety. I would have had no choice if I chose to forgive her cheating self. I met with an absolute bombshell of a divorce lawyer. I would have respected Kate too much to admit that beforehand, but at that point, I knew that she wasn't worth loyalty. The lawyer told me that we were going to have a walk in the park during the divorce proceedings because I had more than enough ammunition for the court. We live in South Carolina, where adultery actually has an impact on the divorce settlement. My lawyer was fairly certain that we might have a good chance at getting her to settle before we even had to go to court, especially with the knowledge that she wouldn't be getting alimony. She said either way would work for us, though going to court would waste our time. I was fine with either, though, obviously. I didn't want to have my time wasted. What I decided to do was simple. She had a family reunion coming up, and I knew that I wasn't going to have to wait too long for that. I was going to be there, and since everyone loved her as much as I used to, I knew I was going to be able to do serious damage at that point. When that day finally came, I made sure that the day went perfectly. I was on my best behavior. I was the greatest husband in the world because I had to paint myself as nicely as possible besides their golden child. I waited for the point where I'd be able to do the most damage, which was when a whole bunch of people were sitting in the living room and talking about things. Eventually, the conversation switched to children, and they asked me when I was going to get Kate pregnant. It was a lighthearted conversation, so my retort was that they were meant to ask how the marriage was before they asked how kids were coming along. It was a flippant answer, but one of her aunts played along. "Okay then, how's the marriage going then?" That was exactly what I wanted to hear her say. "Oh, I filed for divorce last week because Kate has been cheating on me for 2 years with a guy named Ethan. We won't be having any children." I'm the kind of guy who jokes around a lot, so I could hear a few nervous laughs from people who weren't sure if it was a joke that simply wasn't funny. It wasn't my brand of humor, so most of them felt I wasn't joking. They became sure when Kate looked at me and said, "What?" I looked at her and shrugged. I asked her whether she had or hadn't been cheating on me with Ethan for 2 years. At that point, the entire place was quiet. So was Kate. She was just looking at me, unable to say anything. "Well, did you or didn't you?" Not saying anything makes it seem like I'm not lying. She didn't say anything to that, so I added, "I guess I'm not lying then. I know everyone thinks you're the greatest thing in the world, but you've been cheating on me for 2 whole years. I never put a foot wrong on your behalf, and this is how you've chosen to repay me. You're not a perfect person, after all." I didn't say anything after that. The entire place was silent. I guess the whole place was too charged for anyone to say anything. Nobody wanted to be the first person to speak, so I stood up and I walked out. I went to go and chat with the people in another part of the house who had no idea what had just happened. It was funny how one part of the house had frozen solid, but people were still yapping about football at another part of the house. That was more fun to talk about. I was there for 10 minutes before I returned to the living room, though I stood outside to eavesdrop. I could hear whispers and raised voices, if you understand what that means. I couldn't hear what they were saying, so I just popped my head in, which got all of them to stop. A lot of the older women looked angry. I don't know if they were angry at Kate or me. They did try to force smiles when I told them I was going to be heading back home. Kate didn't even bother asking how she was going to get home. She knew that things weren't ever going to be the same. She couldn't meet my eyes. I knew that the views on the golden child were going to change forever, and that made me happy. I went to say bye to people in the other parts of the house, and as I did, I told them that Kate had been cheating on me for 2 years, so we were going to be getting a divorce. I told them that the entire situation was in the living room, and I was running away from it. Some of them didn't believe me, but some of them knew I wasn't joking. I wanted to make sure that it turned into a whole shaming ritual. I know a lot of her family liked me, and she had ruined things. I left them to deal with the sharing as a family. I left after that. Let me fast forward to the divorce. That was my first time seeing her after the entire thing at the reunion. She couldn't meet my eyes, which was funny to me. She didn't try to bury a one-night stand. It was a 2-year affair, so I expected that she would have been more proud of her achievement instead of shying away like she was truly ashamed. She hadn't had an ounce of regret about keeping it going for that long. As expected, her lawyer told her she was going to have little chance of getting alimony with the evidence that I had. It would be best for her to try and come to an agreement with me on how we'd split things, which is what we eventually did. I'd say the balance eventually came out to 60-40 in terms of the split. We had the upper hand and took advantage of it. 60-40 plus no alimony and I keep the house? That's a win for me. Sometime after the divorce, I had so many older members of her family calling me to apologize. They weren't trying to get me to forgive her. They just felt it was the right thing for them to do, considering how she had destroyed the life that we had together. I appreciated that from them. It was enough for me to realize that she was definitely going through a very rough time in their hands. Humans attach quicker to the negative things you do than the positive ones. So much for the golden child. I thought she was perfect, and she still broke my heart. I don't know if there's any point in me trying to date again. I doubt that I'll bother, to be honest. I'll just focus on myself and my career. There's a lot of happiness to be had there. Believe me, you don't need a woman. 2 years isn't confusion. 2 years isn't I made a mistake. 2 years is a full double life where she woke up every morning, looked you in the face, and chose to keep lying. That's not a slip-up. That's a lifestyle. And the worst part? She let you plan a future with her. Kids, a house, a whole life blueprint. Meanwhile, she's out there running a secret relationship like she's balancing 2 calendars and hoping Google doesn't sync them. That kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt. It makes you question your own reality. And the way she couldn't even deny it? That silence said everything. That silence wasn't confusion. It wasn't shock. It was the sound of the truth finally catching up to her. You didn't imagine it. You didn't overreact. You didn't ruin something good. You uncovered something rotten that had been hidden under a very convincing surface. Is it more painful to lose the person you love, or to realize the person you loved never really existed the way you thought? Share your stories with us in the comments. And thank you for joining us today on Our Space. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.